Hey, what up YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams Fan YT. Today I'm going to be going over my predictions for this weekend. I'm not going to be doing the whole week because I'm thinking of going back to doing it on Tuesdays. But we still have quite a lot of games to go through, 82 to be precise, and I'm going to try and do these in about under an hour, preferably. So we'll dive straight into it. We've got lots of local derbies as well to go through, so plenty of excitement. But we're going to start off with tonight's action in League One: Peterborough United versus Stockport County. Bottom of the league versus top of the league, and I think it will be a very chaotic game. I think if you know anything about football, you know that even though it's first v last, nothing is ever a formality, and I think this one could be a 1-1 draw at London Road. Would be a bit of a shock to the system, maybe for Stockport, but I can see it feasibly happening. We've got a Lancashire derby. We've got Preston North End versus Blackburn on the Friday evening tomorrow. Both of these two teams will definitely not want to be losing and will probably get involved in a bit of a scrappy game. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. I can't tell you who will edge out in that one. On to the Saturday games. We've got Burnley hosting Chelsea. Burnley just above relegation zone by 2 goals on goal difference. And Chelsea are in third place. They are 6 points from a title. I don't think they're likely to get it. I think they'll get Champions League, but I can't see anything more than that. I'm going to say in this one, a comfortable 4-1 win to Chelsea. AFC Bournemouth versus West Ham United. Couple of losses have seen Bournemouth drop down into 9th, and feasibly, I just don't see them at the moment being able to be much more than a mid-table team. They just don't have that consistency. West Ham, meanwhile, have had back-to-back wins, and you never know, could be a side to get out of the playoffs, out of relegation rather, zone at the moment. I think this one will be a close game with Bournemouth picking up a point. We'll go with a 1-1 draw. I think it'll be a fair result on paper. Brighton Hove Albion versus Brentford, 11th versus 12th. Two quite mid-table teams here. Not a lot separating them. Only really a couple of goals from defensively standpoint for Brentford. I think it's going to be a very narrow 0-0 draw. I don't think I could edge out either of these two teams at the moment. Fulham versus Sunderland. Fulham have only had 1 win in the last 6 games, and the rest of them have all been losses. It's quite a horrendous run of form. Sunderland have done a really good job so far this season, currently sitting in the top 4. Who would have predicted that at the start of the season? I think Fulham will be trying to get fighting, raring to go after the international break to try and make sure they don't carry on from where they left off and start picking up points. So I think, yeah, a 1-1 draw in this one. I won't be too surprised to see that. Liverpool versus Nottingham Forest. Liverpool have only had 1 win in the last 6 games, and the rest of them all losses. The international break, you could argue, came at the right time for them, but it also came at the right time for Forest, who, yes, picked up 4 points from the last 2 games, but before that were on some really bad run of form. And with Sean Dyche, he's always an unpredictable manager, a bit of your traditional Route 1 style of football, and I do think Forest could shit house a 1-0 win, but I am hoping that the Scousers take home all 3 points and absolutely batter them. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Crystal Palace. 4 losses in a row for Wolverhampton Wanderers was enough to see Vitor Pereira lose his job. Is anyone particularly surprised? I don't really think so. I've actually appointed a new manager yet because they've had all international break to do it, and they've appointed Rob Edwards. I knew they were going into him, but it was definitely a long time it took them to get it. And I think that might signify a bit of a turnaround in form. We're up against a Crystal Palace side, which is a bit indifferent at the moment. I still think that there is a strong possibility that they get at least Europa League football because they definitely have that capacity inside the squad. It's just they haven't displayed it on a most consistent basis. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw here. Maybe Wolves will wake up from their slumber and start building stuff together under Rob Edwards. Newcastle United versus Manchester City. Saudi owners versus United Arab Emirates, isn't it? Who own the Manchester City. So yeah, a bit of a Middle East war more than anything. Man City are definitely the more informed team on paper at the moment. But you know, St James's Park, it's always a tough place to go. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw in this one, which will probably be viewed as a good result by the Geordies. Onto the Championship, slightly local derby, you could say. Bristol City versus Swansea City. As local as either of these two teams are coming this season. Swansea have done some bizarre moves in their time, but changing manager over the international break was not what I had on my bingo card. I know they've slipped down to 17th and haven't been the greatest this season, but they've still not appointed a head coach. And whether they don't have one coming into this, maybe it proved advantageous or maybe it proved disappointing. Bristol City, 2 points outside the playoffs. I think Swansea are going to edge this one out. 1-0 to Swansea. That change in manager hot seat might do them a world of good. You never know. Charlton Athletic versus Southampton. Southampton have now had back-to-back wins before the international break. And you know what? I think they could probably start building together a more competitive side than where they currently are. But they are up against a Charlton side who, yes, lost their last game, but before that were really impressive, hunting down for the playoffs. I think they won't be able to make it at the moment. I think they are slightly a bit further off than the other teams above them. I mean, I think they would probably overtake Hull and Millwall at the moment. But, you know, Bristol City and Ipswich, I think, could be decent contenders. It's a very competitive pack there right now. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here. It's at the Valley. It's one of them ones that could be a... If Charlton win, certainly puts them back into that playoff picture, doesn't it? Coventry City versus West Bromwich Albion. Let's not take anything away from Coventry City in this one. It is a bit of a West Midlands derby of sorts, just over the other side of the Black Country. But yeah, one defeat all season for Coventry, being so dominant, plus 27 goal difference. Everything about the Sky Blues is just going right at the moment. And West Brom, there's nowhere to be seen. They are 14th. They normally would be competing for the playoffs. This season, they'll be lucky if they finish top half at the current rate of performances. I'm going to have to back Coventry to win this one. 2-0 to the Sky Blues. Birmingham City versus Norwich City. Norwich City have finally decided to make a change in the manager's hot seat. It was just not working with Liam Manning, was it? Which, let's face it, was always likely to be the case. He had a very good squad with Bristol City and Norwich. They were sort of overperforming for quite a while. They've appointed a guy called Philip Clement, who hasn't actually managed in England before, but he has just come from a couple of seasons at Rangers, where, you know what, I think he was all right. He won the Scottish League Cup. I think he could have done better in the league. But yeah, he's certainly an interesting manager to have. He's had some success in Europe, certainly. So that'll be interesting to see if he can translate that into the league of the Championship. I'm not convinced so far. He could be a Philip Cocu style manager or Russell Martin or someone like that. And I'm just not convinced at the moment on this Norwich side either. Birmingham City, you'd expect to be challenging for the playoffs this season, and I certainly think they will be doing so. I'm going to go with a 1-0 to Birmingham City here. They're also at home. Just can't see Norwich heading this out. Derby County versus Watford. Well, it seems to have been the case that every single time I'm predicting Derby not to win, they win. So I think we carry on with good luck and predict us to lose, because that's sort of how karma is working at the moment. We're currently the most informed team, by the way, in the entirety of the top 4 leagues if you look over the last 5 games. Don't look before that, but 5 wins in a row for Rams. Beautiful to see. But yeah, I'm going to back Watford to win 2-0, wink, wink. But here's hoping, if we actually win that one, there is a high chance that we get in the playoffs, which is absolutely mental considering where we were a few weeks ago. Ipswich Town versus Wrexham. 2 of the teams who would definitely be having their eyes on playoffs this season. I think Wrexham, although they're unbeaten in 5 now, I don't think they possess the overall quality to be able to get in the playoffs, and I think they may have peaked now. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But Ipswich are also 4 games unbeaten. And you know what? I think they definitely would be deserving of like a top 3 finish based on that quality of squad anyway. But yeah, I actually think Wrexham could win this one. 2-1 to Wrexham. Bit of a upset maybe. Yeah, on to the next one. Leicester City versus Stoke City. Stoke are within touching distance for automatic promotion, and I think at the moment I would have to edge them out. If they stop losing games, then that's pretty much all they need to do. I mean, I know it's easier said than done and a bit of a stupid statement, and it is a difficult game against Leicester. But Leicester, looking this side of the season, not very likely to be a playoff challenger. They are top half, but it's a struggle for the Foxes at the moment. But I think at home, you know what? I'm going to back them to win. It's at home after the international break, a bit of a reset. 2-0 to Leicester City. I'm going to also say that Stoke City, although they have Mark Robbins, I just don't think that I've been burned too many times by how bad Stoke have been. Oxford United versus Middlesbrough. You would be naive not to back Middlesbrough. I know they've been slightly off the boil a bit in the last few games, but up against an Oxford side, which, come on, they're just above relegation zone by 3 points. I've got to say, you got to back Middlesbrough to win this one. And I'm going to go by a hefty amount. 6-2 to Borough. Yeah. Portsmouth versus Millwall. Millwall are just about in the playoffs, and they're taking on Pompey, who are just outside the relegation zone by 4 points. Pompey haven't won in a long, long time at the moment, and you're going to have to say Millwall to win this one. 1-0 to Millwall. I don't think it'll be comfortable, but back to winning ways. They've not seen a win in quite a while now, Millwall. Queen's Park Rangers versus Hull City. Hull are somehow in the playoffs. Would you believe it? It's quite something to behold, the turnaround of that. They're really an erratic club, aren't they? You can never quite tell where they're going to be. QPR, you would normally expect to be up there and challenging, but they're 4 games now without a win. One win in the last 6, and they're now in 16th, and I think they're only looking worse and worse at the present time. I'd have to say Hull to win this one. 3-1 to Hull City. I can never quite place my finger on where QPR because they occasionally do pop up with a playoff standard squad, but most of the time it's just sort of mid-table, and that's sort of where they are now. Now, we're not going to do Exeter City versus Burton Albion because that game has now been called off, but we've got Port Vale versus Plymouth Argyle onto the League One games. Both of these 2 teams in relegation zone. You've got to say Plymouth are in the mud. They're really struggling at the moment. I got speaking to a Plymouth fan actually on Tuesday night when I went to go and watch Ilkeston get pumped 5-0 by Hebburn, and in the pouring rain and cold and miserable. And I'm not going to be uploading any of them shorts because I was, quite frankly, freezing. If Plymouth lose this one, Tom Cleverley has to be sacked, surely. Things are just not working for him at the moment. And Port Vale, you'd expect them to be sort of inhabiting that relegation battle. So I do think Plymouth, maybe to save his job, will win this one. 3-1 to Plymouth Argyle. Make things look slightly better. but it's still not great to be a Pilgrim. AFC Wimbledon versus Wigan Athletic. Wigan are so underachievers at the moment. They're sort of sleeping giants, if you will. And Wimbledon, you know what? They're 1 point off the playoffs, and all credit must go to them of how well they've done so far in League One. But I do think Wigan, I can't get over the fact that they've unbeaten out in the last three, and they are a big team historically. I've got to go with a 2-0 Wigan Athletic win. Barnsley versus Luton Town. Barnsley did win their last game, but before that were on a pretty torrid run of form, so much so that Burton have actually leaped above them. Okay, yes, Barnsley have got like 3 games in hand over like half a division at this point. But it's no use if they can't win it. And Luton Town, unbeaten in the last 3. You'd have to say they're going to be competing for the playoffs this season. You'd expect that. They were relegated from Championship last season. And Luton, I think, are going to win this one. 1-0 to the Hatters. They could really do with scoring a few more over Luton at the moment. Bolton Wanderers versus Bradford City. Is the early season magic that Bradford were having fading? They've not won now in the last 5, although admittedly 4 of them have been draws. But Bolton have sort of pumped up into 4th place. They've had 3 wins on the bounce and they're looking much stronger. And I'm going to have to say Bolton to win this one. They're at home as well. 1-0. I don't think it'll be comfortable, but yeah, a 1-0 win for Bolton. Bradford may just start falling. I still think they're capable of getting the playoffs based on this current score at the moment. They've scored the most amount of goals in League One. So, of course, you'd have to back them to do well. But that form is slowly turning to the worse. Leyton Orient versus Blackpool. 2 teams probably not in the area of the table they'd wish to be. Blackpool in 21st in relegation zone. Leyton Orient in 16th, which is a drop-off from their playoff ambitions they had last season. I think, to be fair, more realistic about where Leyton Orient are, I would say they'd maybe even be a couple of spaces lower come the end of the season, around about 18th. Blackpool, there's definitely a capability to get out relegation zone. They're definitely a huge club historically. But at Brisbane Road, I'm going to back Leyton Orient. 3-0 to Leyton Orient. Blackpool are just not having a good time right now. Mansfield Town versus Huddersfield Town. Huddersfield on odd one, because both of these 2 teams are in 22 points, Mansfield in 9th and Huddersfield in 10th, respectively. Huddersfield are much more likely to be the team you'd expect to be challenging for the playoffs, but at the moment, on broad scale statistics, you would imply that Mansfield are probably more likely to. Nigel Clough has done a very good job with the Nottinghamshire-based side, but I do think Huddersfield maybe win this one. I can't get over how big of a club Huddersfield are to be in League One. And so 2-1 to the Terriers. Northampton Town versus Cardiff City. Cardiff in 5th. I still would say between them and Bolton at the moment, I'd say are a lot more likely to win the title out of all the clubs in that sort of hunt at the moment, which there's only 3 points separating 1st down to 7th. But yeah, I can't get over the huge nature of Bolton and Cardiff historically. But, you know, they've lost the last couple of games, and Northampton do love a good upset, don't they? They really do. They don't score many, but they certainly don't concede many either. It's really interesting because they're the 2nd lowest amount of goals scored per team, but they have also got the joint 2nd best defence in the league alongside Cardiff. Maybe the penny will drop for Northampton and they suddenly score a load of goals in this one. We'll go 3-0 to Northampton. If they get their act together, I certainly wouldn't put it past them to go up and be a bit stronger. But, you know, at the moment, I can't see them moving from where they are. Reading versus Rotherham United. Reading are in 18th. Unbeaten in the last 3, though. Certainly looks much better since they changed the manager in the dugout. That is now in the position of Liam Richardson, who is, I think, doing a much better job. They are up against a Rotherham side who are absolutely fantastic at the moment. They're unbeaten in 6 and seem to have found their mojo, you could say. But you know what? At home at the Majeski Stadium, I'm going to back Reading. A bit of a controversial one, but 2-1 for Reading to win. Both of these two teams historically have been in the Championship. Reading probably more of a stronger out of the two Championship as well. Stevenage versus Doncaster Rovers. No wins in the last 3 have seen Stevenage drop down to 6th. But that's not as meteoric as the decline of Doncaster, who are now without a win in quite a long time and have dropped down to 19th. They had such a good, strong start to the season, but now are looking much, much weaker. And you'd have to back Stevenage to win this one at home. 1-0 to Stevenage. Wycombe Wanderers versus Lincoln City. I'm not convinced that Lincoln are going to ever be able to hold on to that top 2 positions, to be honest. They are so out of form as well. They're just inconsistent. And I would have to back Wycombe, who are also 6 games unbeaten, an incredible run of form for the Chairboys at the moment. Yeah, at home at Adams Park. 1-0 to Wycombe Wanderers, continuing their very, very good run of form. Gillingham versus Barnet. Both of these two teams sort of playoff challengers, if you will. There's 3 points separating them. Gillingham just about in the playoffs in 7th. I'd fully suspect them to get playoffs come the end of the season, mind you. They've just defensively been much better. They need to score a few more compared to the other teams around them. But they're up against a Barnet team, which are not without a win in the last 4, but their last 3 games have all been draws. Gillingham aren't on the greatest run of form either coming into this one. I think it might be a fairly even game, but I'm going to back Barnet to win this one. 1-0 to Barnet. I don't think they'll reach the playoffs, but I think they will be strong challengers, maybe around about that 10th mark, maybe. Harrogate Town versus Walsall. I know Walsall always look likely to throw it away at any given time, but you'd have to say, you'd be naive to not say that they won't at least make the playoffs. Okay, maybe top 3, maybe they're not consistent enough, but they'd have to reach the playoffs this season. They can't have another disaster class and fall apart again, can they? And they are up against a Harrogate team who have not won a game in such a long time. I'm surprised they've kept Simon Weaver on. Well, we know why, because of a bit of nepotism. But yeah, Cheltenham, I think, they're 1 point away and had started picking up points at one point. Newport have changed their manager, so they might start picking up points. I think it might be a difficult season for Harrogate coming up if they don't make a change quick. I'm going to go 2-0 to Walsall here. I just can't back the Yorkshire side to get anything at home. Barrow versus Cambridge United. Cambridge in 12th, very inconsistent at times. Far too many goals not scored. Their defence is decent enough, though. Barrow did lose their last game for about 5 games unbeaten, albeit 4 of them draws. So can we really count that? Probably not. And I would have to say Cambridge to win this one. Clean sheet as well. 2-0 to Cambridge United. Yeah, I think around about that 18th, 17th place mark is probably where Barrow are going to finish. Bromley versus Salford City. Bromley in 5th, 3 games winning on the bounce. Certainly looking a good team. And there are aspects of them which would look like they could get another automatic promotion. I'm really impressed by what I've seen with Bromley so far. However, Salford are also quite a decent team, relatively speaking. Just not enough consistency, and I think this could be an end-to-end game. I'm going to go Salford to win 3-2, which may be a bit of a surprising one. The Cheltenham Town versus Bristol Rovers. Another one of them local derbies of sorts, and probably not ones which either side considers their main ones, but has definitely developed recently. Bristol Rovers, oh my days, what a horrendous run of form they're on right now. Could you be on a worse run of form? Surely they've sacked their manager at this point of the season. No, they've still got Darren Clark. I feel like I'm Googling this every single video at this point. Something's got to click. And maybe up against a Cheltenham side who are in relegation zone at the moment. I'd argue the worst team in the division. They've joint lowest scorers in the league, are only scoring 13. They've conceded 30, which is the most in the league. It's it's not great to be a Cheltenham fan at the moment. And if Bristol Rovers can't beat Cheltenham, then I don't think they can beat anyone, to be quite frank. I'm going to go with a 1-0 Bristol Rovers win. I don't think it's going to be a nice game to watch at all. And it might get very scrappy and maybe a couple of red cards in there. Crawley Town versus Accrington Stanley. Crawley down in 20th, whereas Accrington Stanley in 18th. There's not a lot separating these two teams on paper. Accrington Stanley got slightly better defense and a marginal by margin, only one goal in it, better attack. But yeah, really not a much difference. I think we're going to back home advantage here. 3-1 to Crawley Town. They are, I would say, slightly better in terms of form, having had 7 points in the last 3 games compared to 5 of Accrington. Yeah, I mean, it could go either way, though, couldn't it? On to the next one, we have Crewe Alexandra versus Chesterfield. Again, I think this could be one of the mad results that we see. Crewe are just outside outside the promotion zone, the playoff zone rather, on goal difference. And we know Chesterfield bottle it against Crewe. 7-1 Crewe, the same as we're going to see in the EFL trophy. I think we might see that repeated. You know what? I'd rather it didn't happen because that would make me really sad. And I'd rather Chesterfield put vengeance into it, but I just can't see it at the moment. Chesterfield is such a wild team. On to Fleetwood Town versus Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury are now at relegation zone. They've certainly picked up performances of late. And I think, you got to back at the moment them to stay up, especially considering how bad some of the teams are around them, like the likes of Bristol Rovers, Harrogate. They're both quite poor at the moment. So yeah, I think Shrewsbury are slowly getting their act together. And they're travelling to Fleetwood, which, yes, is a hard place to go, but they're very mid-table. I think Shrewsbury might be up for this. A 1-0 win for Shrewsbury. Certainly not a classic by any means, but it's 3 points nevertheless. Notts County versus Colchester United. Only one defeat in the last 6 games for Colchester. Certainly looking to gather a bit of form together. But Notts County, what a team they are at the moment. Unbeaten in the last 6. I think this will be quite an even game. I think both of them coming on quite a good patch of form at the moment. We'll go with a 1-1 draw in this one. On to Oldham Athletic versus Newport County. Now, at least they're playing Oldham, Newport. I think that's saying something, isn't it? Because Oldham are the joint worst scorers in the division, only scoring 13 goals. They've conceded 12, which is a phenomenal defence. It's the best defence in the league, undeniably so. But how on earth they are managing to stay so competitive? They just need outfield scorers. It's absolutely ridiculous at this point. Get a striker in the January transfer window if you can, because that will change a lot of things. And we have had a change in the managerial hot seat at Newport. I wasn't too surprised. I mean, I've been saying that he's got to go for weeks. Christian Fuchs, interestingly, is the man to have come in as the manager. Again, going down the former player route. We all remember Christian Fuchs, I'm sure, from his days at Leicester City. What an incredible defender he was back in the day. That marauding left back. And you know what? Made 78 appearances for Austria, 116 for Leicester. Certainly had a great playing career. Whether he manages to translate any of that into Performances on the pitch remains to be seen. Maybe he's the latest legend off the production line to actually be decent, because some of them aren't. But yeah, I'm going to have to back Newport to win this one. 1-0, a good start for Christian Fuchs. Swindon Town versus Grimsby Town. Definitely a promotion match, this one, isn't it? Well, Swindon are top of the league. I don't think anyone can quite believe that. I certainly didn't believe that reading it. But you know what? They've managed to collect a fair few points. They're unbeaten in the last 4 now. And Grimsby, I don't know, they're a bit... Can't really quite place them at the moment. They're looking a bit lost. So you've got to say Swindon to win 3-1. Tranmere Rovers versus MK Dons. MK Dons in 3rd. Tranmere Rovers down in 16th. I think it could be. It's not going to be a classic, but I think this could be a Chesterfield. But yeah, we're going to go with a 1-1 draw. Another bit of a mad one. On to the National League. We've got Aldershot Town versus Woking. Which, you know, local rivalry of sorts, and both of them aren't in the greatest position league table wise at the moment. Aldershot, horrendous run of form, which they're going to be desperately hoping that John Coleman can fix, because they're now in the relegation zone and are now 3 points away from safety. Woking are actually unbeaten in the last 6. A lot of draws in there, admittedly, but they're in 15th. This has got all the hallmarks, though, doesn't it, of Aldershot causing an upset. And they're also at home. 2-1 to Aldershot Town. I think this could be a very feisty occasion. Tamworth versus Rochdale. Now, yes, Rochdale are a very strong team. 1 point away from the title with 2 games in hand. You know, it's one of them ones. I think they are likely to be title contenders till quite late on. But maybe Tamworth comes in and ruffles a few feathers. They are a team that notoriously were good in defence historically a few seasons back, and are absolutely not now, but it's still competitive nonetheless. To be in 9th means that you are probably playoff challenging. 1-1 draw as well as at home at the Lamb Ground. Gives something the fans to cheer about. Brackley Town versus York City. I told you York will come back good. They are now 4th place, 2 points behind the title. 4 wins in a row, looking really strong. I've got to say they're going to beat Brackley, who have only had 1 win now in the last 6 games. Yeah, we're going to go with a 1-0 win for York City. On to the next one. Eastleigh versus Hartlepool United. 2 very, very mid-table teams. Now, yes, Hartlepool are unbeaten in the last 5. Eastleigh a bit more indifferent. But yeah, I think this has got all the signifying factors to be a draw. We'll go with a 1-1 draw in this one. Is anyone particularly surprised? Gateshead versus Boreham Wood. Gateshead, a really difficult team to place your finger on, because they're looking at the moment down the barrel of the shotgun and looking like they could well be relegated, considering 43 goals conceded is the 2nd worst in the division, with only Morecambe conceding more, and they sort of have an excuse. But 25 goals scored is still a great amount to be down there. Bournemouth have scored 35, conceded 20. I think this could be a fantastic end-to-end draw. We'll go with a 2-2 draw in this one. Gateshead can't get relegated, can they, really? SE Halifax Town versus Solihull Moors. Yeah, a bit of a mid-table battle at this moment in time, I'd say. Solihull only 1 defeat in the last 6 games. Halifax haven't won in the last 5. So you would probably say Solihull to win this one, and I am going to. I'm going with 1-0 to Solihull Moors, continuing that decent run of form, because they've got 3 wins on the bounce as well. Morecambe versus Yeovil Town. Yeovil are not without a win now in a long, long time. Morecambe won their last game, and I think they're beginning to turn a corner. Their goal difference has taken a massive nosedive from the start of the season, but I think they are gathering a bit of momentum now, and I think Morecambe could win this one at home. 2-1 to Morecambe. I think everybody's silently willing them to not be back-to-back relegated. Scunthorpe United versus Braintree Town. Braintree just in the relegation zone, but they sometimes grind out them weird results. And Scunthorpe lost in last one, which meant that their unbeaten run came to an end. They'll be licking their wounds. 0-0 draw will go in this one. Southend United versus Altrincham. 7th place Southend versus Altrincham, which, yes, are unbeaten 4 and have won last 3 games in a row to pummel themselves up to 13th. What a change in manager does. Hey, Altrincham got rid of Phil Parkinson. After a long time, he was a good servant to the club, but things were just not working. They've still got an interim manager, and I wouldn't actually be surprised if Neil Gibson gets a permanent gig, considering how well he's doing. But yeah, I'm going to have to say Southend to win this one. 2-1 to the Shrimpers. Truro City versus Sutton United. Relegation 6-pointer maybe. Sutton unbeaten now in 3, only 1 win in the last 5. They are now beginning to get themselves out of relegation zone. Slowly but surely does it. Truro 3 defeats in a row, and it looks like it's going to be a long season for Truro, doesn't it? I'm going to have to back Sutton to win this one. 2-0 to Sutton United. That may be the first not 0-0 I've predicted for Truro all season. It seems like it anyway. Wealdstone versus Forest Green Rovers. Unbeaten in the last 4 for Wealdstone, and they are 3 points off the playoffs. But Forest Green Rovers, 4 wins in a row, top of the league. It's a tall order for anyone to face Forest Green Rovers at the moment. But you know what? I'm going to back Wealdstone for it. They're at home as well, so why ever not? 2-1 for Wealdstone. And the Wealdstone Raider can be absolutely delighted and show you've got no fans to the Forest Green Rovers fans, because they probably don't have any. Boston United versus Carlisle United. Carlisle have been 10 out of 10 most weeks now. And I don't think Boston are going to cause them the slightest bit of trouble. I'm going to go with a bit of a bulldozing through demolition job here. 5-0 to Carlisle United. AFC Telford United versus South Shields. Very happy midweek result for South Shields, wasn't it? As they got past Oxford City with relatively ease to put them back top of the league. I think this could be a bit of an even one. I don't think necessarily the woes of South Shields have been fully put behind them. I think it could be a 0-0 draw. Not the most convincing result by any lengths. Chester versus Leamington. Chester beginning to get a bit of form of sorts, an improvement on the pitch. But, Leamington are bottom of the league. You'd expect Chester to win this any day of the week, and I'm going to have to say it. 1-0 to Chester. Chorley versus Bedford Town. Now, I know Chorley are on a bad run of form, like really bad, and Bedford on a decent one, but they're both equal on points, 22 points, 13th v 14th. 0-0 draw for me. It's going to have to be, and I don't think Chorley surely are down there by the end of the season. A County Durham derby as Darlington are hosting Spennymoor. Spennymoor in 6th, but I don't think it'll look as convincing as they did a few weeks ago, hence why they're there. And Darlington are 3 wins on the bounce, and I think they're definitely getting playoffs at this current rate. 33 goals scored that's the sort of statistics you need to be really in that playoff. And 1-0 to Darlington, which will probably see them swap places. AFC Fylde versus Buxton. Okay, 1 defeat in the last 6, but all the other ones were wins for Fylde, and it's between them and South Shields, I think, at this point, pretty much who gets automatic promotion up. Already this early on in the season, I think you can pretty much wipe out anyone else. Buxton have lost the last 3 in a row. I'm going to have to say Fylde win this one. 1-0 to Fylde. Kings Lynn Town versus Macclesfield. Macclesfield unbeaten in the last 5, 4 of them wins. You certainly would bank on Macclesfield to get the playoffs. They're certainly a team which a lot of people have heavy favourites for the playoffs this season. Most of them for the title. Kings Lynn, though, unbeaten in the last 3, and I think could cause a bit of trouble. We'll go with a 1-1 draw in this one. Marine versus Oxford City. Oxford City they're still struggling down there in relegation zone, but maybe an opportunity against Marine. Okay, yes, they've only lost once in the last 6 and are just outside the playoff zones in 8th, but they don't score a lot. They've only scored 19, and -6 goal difference sort of tells a different story from maybe their league position. A 1-1 draw in this one, which, yes, means that Marine can continue their decent run of form, but they'd rather a win, wouldn't they? On to Merthyr Town versus Alfreton Town. Merthyr are doing great. 5 wins on the bounce. Absolutely top draw. But I think Alfreton have done a decent enough job to get themselves out relegation zone. And we're right up for this one. A 0-0 draw for the Reds, travelling down to South Wales. Maybe for the first time even, actually. Peterborough Sports versus Radcliffe. How different these two teams' fates have been. With Peterborough Sports second from bottom, whereas Radcliffe are currently 4th. One of the best teams in the division, arguably the best team in form at the moment. Yeah, I think this actually could be totally radical, call me this, but a radical Radcliffe result for a 1-1 draw, potentially, we'll go with. So, yeah, 1-1 draw. Scarborough Athletic versus Hereford, the battle of the Phoenix clubs, of which there's a lot in the National League North. Scarborough won a 4-game losing streak, but they won the last one and sort of stabilised the boat because they were looking a bit out of ideas recently. Hereford are looking lost. They were last season really solid, but now, although they have a game in hand, but still on the same amount of points and same goal difference as Southport, who've picked up an immense amount of form recently. Yeah, Hereford ain't looking good, and I'm going to have to say Scarborough win this one by 1-0. Southport versus Kidderminster Harriers. We just mentioned Southport's turnaround, 4 games unbeaten. Now, yes, Kidderminster Harriers had a really good run of form, but they did lose that on the last game. They lost their last one, and maybe I'm not convinced on Kiddy at the moment. I'm going to Southport to win this one, 2-1. They're at home as well. I can't actually see Kidderminster Harriers staying in the playoffs on their current performances. Worksop Town versus Curzon Ashton. Curzon Ashton are narrowly got past Ilkeston in the FA Trophy last week, and they are now 3 points off the playoffs. But you know what? I think it could well happen. Going to be honest. They're up against a Worksop team, only 1 win in the last 6. You'd normally say Curzon Ashton, but I think Worksop actually might pull this off. 3-2 to Worksop Town. I'm going to change my mind last minute. No logical sense maybe in that at all, but yeah. Chippenham Town versus Tonbridge Angels. Chippenham are still with that. Oh no, they got 1 win now. 1 win in their 17 games. 1 win, 5 draws, 11 losses. It's looking in a really bad shape for the Wiltshire-based team. But if they don't get anything against Tonbridge Angels, he might as well write off the season. Tonbridge Angels in 15th have got nothing to play for by the looks of it. Not without a win in the last 3. I've got to say, a 0-0 draw, it's something, isn't it? Dagenham and Redbridge versus Maynard United. 14th versus 16th. Dagenham and Redbridge, real upturn in form. 1 defeat in the last 6. 4 games unbeaten. Maynard have 4 losses in a row. And again, I'm here questioning Alan Devonshire. Should he actually still be at the club? I think Dagenham and Redbridge do win this one. 1-0 to the East Londoners. Or the East Enders, maybe. Dorking Wanderers versus Maidstone United. Dorking are in 7th, which is a bit of a shock, but they've had some good form of late, although it did come to the end last time they were in the league. But before that, 5 games unbeaten, 4 wins in a row. It's really what you'd like to see. But they are up against a Maidstone team, which, you know, they're in 10th. They're 2 points behind them. I think there's not a lot of difference between these two teams. A 1-1 draw. Ebbsfleet United versus Chesham United. 11th versus 12th, 1 point separating the two, same amount of goal difference. Slightly better goals for Chesham, slightly better defence for Ebbsfleet. I'm going to Chesham to win this one 4-1, which is a bit of a radical result, maybe, but you know, there's maybe a bit of rationale to the madness. Enfield Town versus Farnborough. Farnborough just above a relegation zone in 16th. Farnborough in 20th with 16 points. 23rd at Enfield with 12 points, 4 defeats in a row. Enfield are looking a bit lost, but I think they could get something here at home. It's a huge game for them this season. 1-0. I'd already say this. This is a relegation 6-pointer, mark my words. Hampton Richmond Borough versus Bath City. Bath City in 17th, Hampton Richmond in 19th. Hampton Richmond Borough on a really bad run of form. They've been plummeting down the league, and I think Bath are going to be cruel here. 5-0 to Bath City. Hampton Richmond Borough, something's got to change at this club. Hemel Hempstead Town versus Horsham. 5th versus 6th. Both very decent teams, albeit Horsham are on a really good run of form. They have proper strength in form at the moment. They're probably the second best team on form at the moment, which I wasn't really expecting, in all honesty. And I think that might come to an end. They're travelling to a decent Hemel Hempstead team, and I think the Tudors might win 3-1. Hornchurch versus AFC Towton. Hornchurch are top of the league, but Towton were decent not that long ago, and I think it could be a combative 0-0 draw. Neither team wanting to lose this one. Salisbury versus Chelmsford City. 4 wins in a row for Chelmsford, whereas they are up against a side in Salisbury, which, yes, 3 games unbeaten, have pushed themselves out of the relegation zone at the moment. But yeah, I can't see Chelmsford losing or even dropping points in this one. 3-1 to Chelmsford City. Slough Town versus Worthing. Slough Town did end their losing streak. They lost 5 in a row before their last game, which they won, which has seen them now 1 point off the safety net, that dotted line, which they needed. And I think we may suddenly start seeing things improving. Now, they're up against a Worthing side, though, who are 6 wins in a row. But this is the National League South we're talking about. Mad results as well are my speciality. 4-0 to Slough Town, which, yes, it's mad. But come on, we love to see it. Torquay United versus Eastbourne Borough. Torquay are in 4th. Eastbourne are in 22nd. And I don't think there's going to be such a miraculous story for Eastbourne. Sorry, guys. 2-0 to Torquay. They're at Plainmoor. It's got to be the Devon side to win. Weston-super-Mare versus Dover Athletic. Weston-super-Mare in 2nd place. They'll be looking to capitalise on getting this. They've got a game in hand as well. I think they're going to win this one. They'll certainly be going for the title this season. 1-0 to Weston-super-Mare. I don't think it'll be convincing, but a result nevertheless. On to the Sunday games. Got Leeds United versus Aston Villa. Going to be an equal one. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw, which will just mean that Leeds just stay up above that relegation zone at the moment, but they're hovering perilously close. We've got the North London derby. I think both of these two teams will be right up for this game, especially Arsenal, I feel, who are probably sensing that they can get a title for the first time in, 20 years now? Maybe even longer, 22? I can't remember. But yeah, I think Arsenal win this. The Gunners take home the bragging rights. 2-1 to Arsenal. It's also a Steel City derby. Sheffield Wednesday versus Sheffield United. I think Sheffield Wednesday have probably got other things to concern their minds with at the moment, and Sheffield United are desperate to get out the mire they found themselves in at the moment. So yeah, 1-0 to Sheffield United. I'm sorry, Wednesday night, but I can't see Sheffield Wednesday getting anything from this. Manchester United versus Everton. The Wayne Rooney derby, shall we call it. Or maybe the second teams in respective cities. Oh, wait, I might actually get killed if I say that. But yes, I think Manchester United have looked much better of late. I think we can all agree on that. So yeah, as a result, the Red Devils to win 4-0. Thank you very much for watching my whistle-stop tour of my predictions this week. I've got something to do tonight, that's why. But I'm going to go back to Tuesdays, Martin Ryan, just because I think it suits suits me as well, and I think a lot of people will enjoy it. But yes, if you're going to any games, let me know your predictions, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.